Wow, that's that's not right. That's better. All right. I have so many questions to answer. So I asked you guys to give me all your questions about my job and my career. I put this post up on Instagram and I got 72 questions on that picture, and then another one on this post, which has another further 78 comments. Initially I was going to do all this in one video, but then I realized that that one video was going to be, if I did all the questions, it would take like 45 minutes to get through all the questions, and that's just crazy. I'm not going to make you guys sit through 45 minutes of me talking. That's too much. So I decided to split these questions into two videos. So this video that you're watching now are going to be only career oriented questions, things that have to do with my career as a travel journalist. And then I made another video that is just travel related questions, because I got questions that fell into both categories. So if you want to see the travel related questions, click the link right there. Go watch that. And then of course I'll link it down underneath this video as well. But I hope you guys find the career stuff interesting and helpful. Okay, I'm going to start with this question because I like this. Jen Carrera asked, what is it exactly that you do? Would you be able to give just a short explanation at the beginning of the video? That's a great idea, Jen. I'm going to start with that. So I'm a travel journalist, and when I say journalist, what I mean is I'm a video journalist. And I think that term confuses some people. I think there were a lot of questions in there that were directed towards writing. So to clarify, I'm not a writer. I'm a travel video journalist. I'm video based only. So what you're watching here on YouTube, the Travel Muse, that's one thing that I do, and that's travel vlogging. And then I have another job, that's a full-time job with a company called Circa News. I've been with them for about 2 years. And with them, I am a multimedia journalist of travel and lifestyle. That's my official title with them. I'm based in their LA office. I do travel-related stories, travel-themed stories around the city here in LA. And then a few times a year I get sent out to destinations abroad, and I cover travel-related stories in the various countries that I go to. And the through line is always travel something. So it's not necessarily like this is the hot, cool new destination. It's like human interest stories in these other locations. So like a great example of that would be the restaurant in the women's prison that I covered in Colombia last year. Because the underlying theme of that is this is a really hot restaurant in Cartagena. Everybody likes to go to it. But there's a deeper story behind it. So that's what I do. That's what when I say I'm a travel journalist, I'm doing stories like that. Crackle Jackie asked, how do you budget for trips in general? Are some of your oh my god, this is like a 5-part question. Are some of your trips abroad personal, or does your job fund your ticket and stay? I'll get to those two first. How do I budget for trips in general? I travel on an intense budget. If it's personal, I travel on an intense budget. This goes to the next part of the question. Does your job fund your ticket and stay? Yes. So if I'm doing a Circa trip, yes, they fund my travels. Not every travel that I do all year long is through Circa. I do take my own personal trips sometimes. For instance, when I went to Spain in 2017, that was my trip. That was like my personal vacation. Circa had nothing to do with that. They did not pay for it. But New Zealand and Colombia, that was through Circa. That was a Circa assignment, so to speak, so they paid for those trips too. Okay, this question is from Katie Sir Love. And pretty much, actually, almost everybody asked the same question, so I'll knock it out in this one. How did you get into your field of work, and how long did it take you to get where you are today? So I got my undergraduate degree at the University of Colorado at Boulder, and I studied broadcast news. So I always knew I wanted to be in journalism. I always knew I wanted to be specifically in broadcasting journalism. But what my dream job, my goal has always been to be like, I don't know if you guys know who Lisa Ling is. She's this badass, awesome journalist. Oprah like touched her and she turned into gold, and she's just this like, she's so cool. She's so good at what she does. The other part of that is that I always knew I wanted to incorporate travel into what I do. Always, because I've always had the travel bug. Then to answer the next part of your question, Katie, how long did it take you to get where you are today? So before I started the Travel Muse, and like actually working as a travel journalist. I was working as a reporter for stations across the country 3 years, and then I went freelance for another 3 years. The answer to that question is about 6 years it took me to get to a point where I am today. That was about a 6-year process. Compassionate Lifestyle asked, I love your animal-related journalism, like your segment on Elephant Nature Park. Thank you, Compassionate Lifestyle. That's one of my favorite pieces I've ever done, ever. Shalene asked, what got you into this field of work? I just always wanted to. I don't know. I never, ever grew up as a kid wanting to do anything else. I wasn't good at anything else. I never had like a natural proclivity for anything other than telling stories, being in front of the camera. I just was drawn to it from as long as I can remember. There was nothing else I ever wanted to do. Aria's Jasmine 14 asked, is it lucrative and how do you fund your travels? It depends. Is it lucrative? No, not really. Being a journalist in general is not a very lucrative career. Unless you're a journalist on TV in like a network space. But digital journalists, like what I do now, not really. It's not that lucrative. But it's also not paltry. Like I can still live off of it and be comfortable and be fine. And then the other part of your question was, how do you fund your travels? I have a video called 7 Easy Ways to Save Money for Travel. I'll link that below. But one of the things that I always do is I have my company redirect a lot of money from my paycheck every month. They directly deposit it into my savings account, a portion of it, and then the rest of it goes into my checking account. And that's what I live off of. That's what I budget off of. So without even thinking, I never even factor in or see the money that they just put into my savings account. It just goes there and it just sits there and accumulates. And that's the money that I use to travel. Create Love Travel. Is your personal... Oh, this is actually a good question. Create Love Travel asked, is your personal channel, The Travel Muse, connected to your career? No. The Travel Muse happened before Circa News. Actually, it was because of The Travel Muse that Circa News found me. So they are totally unrelated. They have nothing to do with one another. What I shoot for The Travel Muse is different from what I shoot for Circa. The only way they cross over sometimes is when I shoot behind the scenes while I'm traveling. There's plenty of those videos on this channel. So like Circa News will send me out on whatever, Colombia, and I'll shoot the content for them, and those get produced and put into like beautiful little packages and stories that go on Circa's platform. And then in between the shoots and in the travel and like my hotel room, I do all sorts of behind the scenes shooting on those trips. And that goes on this channel, on the Travel Muse. That's the only way these two platforms cross over, is that they're somewhat related because I'm filming simultaneously, but they actually have nothing to do with each other. Corn Pops 24/7 asked, you'd mentioned in one of your videos that you used to be freelance. How is the experience of working freelance different than working at Circa? And do you prefer one over the other? Awesome question. There's pros and cons to both. Freelance, what I didn't like about it is that it's not steady. I supported myself and I made it. It was nerve-wracking because every month you make a different income and you don't actually know what you're gonna pull in, and you don't know where it's coming from. So it's like literally every month is a freaking leap of faith. For me, I don't like that feeling. I don't like not knowing where I'm gonna get my money from. So obviously that's a huge pro of working for a company like Circa. I know I'm gonna get a paycheck. I know exactly what it's gonna be. I know when it's coming. I love the security of that. But then the flip side is, I'm not the boss of my own schedule working for a company like Circa. And as a travel journalist, that can be really frustrating because I cannot just pick up and go where the great destinations are, the great stories are. There's a whole process that I got to go through in order to make my travels happen. So it's pros and cons, weigh it out. I happen to love the security of having a job like Circa, and I'm eternally grateful for it. Teddy Todorova, I think that's how you say it, sorry if it's not, said, I've watched you for almost a year now, yay! And I love your videos. I also enjoy the prank wars, they're hilarious. Thank you, Teddy, I enjoy them too. Just tell my colleagues that, they don't think it's that funny, but I don't care. Alejandro P. asked, what are some things you would recommend to those who want to get into travel journalism? Just start doing it. Whether it's travel writing or what I do, which is travel video, the way that I got the travel muse going is just by doing it. Nobody was paying me to do it. I just enjoyed it, and so I just started doing it. And I would say find your own voice within it. I think it's a trap that a lot of people fall into, to copy other people, to try to be like Casey Neistat or be like Louis Cole. They're great inspirations, but I would say only use them as inspirations and find your own voice and just start doing it. Jordan Witt asked, how many days out of the year are you traveling? Do you get to pick where you go? How many days? I don't know. I don't know how many days, but I can tell you I travel probably 4 or 5 times a year, like major travels 4 or 5 times a year. And the duration of those vary, depends on the project that I'm going after. And do I get to pick where I go? Yeah, I do. That's a really awesome thing about my job, is that I go after where the stories are, basically. So the process is that I find the stories, and then I have to craft a whole pitch. I've got to put together a budget and a story list and an itinerary, and it's very, very structured and organized, but I do get to pick the actual locations and stories that I go after. And as long as I get the approval from the higher ups at my company, then I go off and do it. There's so many questions. I'm sorry, I'm skipping over the questions that I already answered. So some of you are not going to have your names called out because you asked questions that everybody asked, but I hope I'm answering all of them. Marlena Glynn Ghostwriter asked, I'm glad to see such professionalism while avoiding private life scrutiny. Thank you. What do you do to keep the two separate? You're very good at it. Alluring without over-revealing. Thank you, Marlena. I just, when I started this journey, I set for myself very clear lines that I would not cross. A life theory that I live by, whether it's on platforms like YouTube or Instagram or just in life in general, I do not air my dirty laundry. Just don't do it. Okay, Hodman asked, how have you learned to better prepare for an assignment throughout your career so far? Great question. Research, research, research. The worst mistake you can do, and I would say this is not just for like travel journalism, but just in life in general, is to show up somewhere unprepared. You never want to be caught unprepared or unaware. So before I step into anything, research the hell out of it. And that's how you're able to just think on your feet more. The more you know, the more you're armed, and the better you're going to perform in any situation. Peggy Sue 6464 asked, have you ever been approached about modeling? No, I'm too short. I'm like 5'6". Oh, but she did ask, would you be interested in your own TV show where you travel and give your insight, love, passion, and feedback of the different countries and your favorite destinations for the public? Duh. I would love that. Can you tag the Travel Channel or something for me? Oh, this is a good question. Dear Amateur Traveler said, did you ever feel like you wanted to quit travel journalism? Great question. There were moments where I got so frustrated because I felt like I wasn't making any progress whatsoever that I felt like giving up. Yeah. I am not nearly as far along in this dream or this desire that I have, and no one's paying attention. I'm working so hard, blah, blah, blah. Why do I even try? I've totally had those moments, but luckily they're fleeting and I don't pay attention to them. Lauren Wernlein? I'll put it on the screen. I don't know how to say this. Wernlein, I think. Anyway. How did you learn to edit and shoot? That's a good question. So in school, when you study broadcast news, again, because that's a video-based degree, they did teach me how to shoot and edit for news. Shooting for news, especially like local news, local TV news, is not a creative process. There's a formula to it. There are certain shots you need to get. There's a certain editing flow. It's not a creative thing. That said, that's where I got my basis of learning how to shoot and edit from. From there, I taught myself everything else. Oh, for God's sake, where was I? I gotta reload all the comments. The Maria Moore, she asked a few things. A lot of things. But I actually like these questions. Okay, first question. What was your first job before getting to Circa and doing your own travel journalism? My very, very first official job was for Living Dayton in Dayton, Ohio. It was the NBC affiliate there, WDTN. And then after that I worked for CBS in San Diego as a reporter. Chris Bean Thomas asked, how do you manage your life at home in a relationship with your boyfriend, family, friends, since you travel so much, and if you want to have kids one day, how do you think you'll balance all of that? Would you ever, oh my god, there's so many questions in this. Hold on. You know, I don't travel that much that I can't have relationships with the people in my life. I'm home for like long stretches of time. I think it just appears that I'm gone for such a long time because I get so much content when I go on these trips, and I'm posting, I like stretch out the posting. But I have downtime in between where I'm like, I live a normal life. Axipat. I'm sorry, I'll put your name on the screen. I know your username. I see your username all the time. I just don't know how to say it. When did you start blogging and what inspired you to start? Well, I didn't blog. I was vlogging. And when did I start doing it? I started doing it in between... No, that's not true. I started doing it after I left my job when I was working for CBS. It was Channel 8 in San Diego. I was working for them. I left that job, and I made that decision after that job to get out of TV because I wasn't happy. I was not happy working in TV. And I really wanted to do this, what I'm doing now. So it was after leaving that job in San Diego, which was now 4 years ago. What inspired you to start? I mean, basically what inspired me to start was I was sick and tired of telling people this is what I wanted to do, but not actually doing it. I felt like a phony. And I also was getting frustrated that I was in my late 20s when I started doing it, and I was like, it's now or never. Oh, this is a great one. Heather Annie 9 was, how did you become a travel journalist, and was it a position you had to create for yourself, or was it already existing? The basic answer to that question, both of those questions, is yes, I had to create it for myself. The Travel Muse, obviously that didn't exist, and the travel space existed, but this was entirely self-motivated. I had to create that. The job that I have currently, the company was new when I started, so it's not like I was stepping into a role that somebody else was leaving. They hired me based off of what they saw from this very channel, from the Travel Muse. And so, in a sense, yeah, I created that role. Wow, I got through all of it. That was it. If I didn't say your name in the video, but you posted a question, I'm sorry. It's not that I'm ignoring you. I was just skipping over the questions that I had already answered. Thank you so much for your questions. They were so thoughtful and well written. So I really hope you guys found this video helpful. I hope you found it inspiring. And no matter what it is that you want to do, whether it's you want to do what I do or you've got your own aspirations in life, just do it. There's no better time to do anything than the present. Because the future hasn't happened yet and the past is already gone. I need to drink some water. There was a lot of talking.